Hey everybody, it's Jay, and my gun of the day today is a gun that I referenced in a video, another gun of the day video I did a while back for my Steyr AUG, the Tavor X95. In that video for the Steyr AUG, I mentioned that I'm not really a big bullpup fan, and at the time said that the Steyr AUG is the only bullpup I had. That's actually not completely true. I also have a PS90. It was actually sitting beside me when I recorded that video. I just totally forgot that I have it. Or at least I forgot about it being a bullpup. But my opinion on the X95 is generally overall very positive, to the point that it is one of the few bullpups that I actually want to own, because I really do think in a lot of ways it has exceeded the Steyr AUG in modernity. So it's made a lot of improvements where the Steyr AUG is kind of stuck back in the 70s. This feels, the Tavor X95, feels like a very modern bullpup. So we've done some history videos on the SAR, on the TAR-21, the Micro Tavor, and the Tavor X95 before, so I'm not going to retread all that. This will be just about my experience with it and why I like this particular gun. To point out one thing that I don't really like about it very much is I forgot really how heavy it is. That's something that came up in the AUG video in the comments a lot, is how heavy they are. This is actually heavier than the AUG A3 by about 0.8 pounds. It weighs at about 7.9 to the Steyr AUG's 7.1, at least in the A3 configuration. So it is weightier than something like an M4A1, depending on how you have that configured. That's pretty much the only thing I don't really like about this gun. The trigger is okay for a bullpup. If you know much of anything about bullpups, the triggers tend to be pretty bad because you have a transfer bar that goes from where the trigger is all the way back to the action to engage the firing mechanism, and that usually leads to a pretty crap trigger for bullpups. The K&M M17S, which I actually have had, M17S 556, I've had in the past. I didn't hang on to it because I really think it was kind of an aesthetic thing, and it was very expensive. For what they were going for at the time, I couldn't justify hanging on to it. And I also had some concerns about it being a boutique gun. I think it's pretty much made by one guy, and having problems in parts availability, in the future for it. Because there's not a lot of parts commonality with it. With this, they're pretty well mass-produced. They've been adopted, or at least the Micro Tavor has been adopted by Israel as the standard issue rifle of the IDF, and they've been pretty commonly available as the semi-auto X95 in the US, so parts aren't really a concern right now for them. So something that I really do like about this is the handguard on the front end here. Looks like one piece, and in fact this is not really even a handguard. These are rail covers for the handguard. There is a little lever which you saw there. Let me check these down. That just slide right off. So they make one continuous piece when you have them on for a nice comfy, if not a little bit chunky handguard. They do this on the Galil Ace as well, and I really like that. The other thing that I like on it, I mentioned the trigger being okay. I'll go ahead and kind of describe what I meant by that. It is not a two-stage trigger. There is no definitive wall. It just rolls back, kind of has a slightly heavy feel, and then breaks. I still think it's much, much better than the Tavor SAR stock trigger. And then, like I said, compared to a lot of other bullpups, even the Steyr AUG, it's a lot better. The other nice thing, of course, speaking to the modern way this gun is designed, is the mag release is in a more conventional place. So you just tap the button, it drops out. The bolt release is still in the rear, much like on the Steyr AUG, but it's very light and it's easy to just kind of tap whenever you're changing mags out to get to go forward, if you choose not to slingshot it. Has a rotating safety, unlike the Steyr AUG's crossbar safety, which also I think is more of a modern consideration. But going back to the handguard thing, And the rail cover thing, that's just something that I think is very well thought out. It's something that they've very clearly thought about and put effort into. This feels like a gun that has gone through refinement. And I'm sure that that comes from the original issue of the MTAR Tavor. So, and this is kind of the final output of that. Moving the charging handle to a flat charging handle that's even here, instead of one that's cocked and turned up like that, like even like the AUG has, where you tend to pull it back and drag your knuckles against anything that you have mounted to your rail system. So, reliability is another thing that's really cool on these. This is the only bullpup that I've ever had that ran steel case out of the box. Most of them, my AUG ran only brass for maybe the first 300 rounds, and then after that started picking up with steel. I had to switch it over to the adverse gas setting to kind of get it to start cycling steel, and then after a while I can run it. As long as I'm using a quality steel case, I can usually get it to cycle. Tula won't cycle at all with still. This has been fine with steel case right out of the box, which I think is pretty nice. I'd like to get it out to the range and do some decent accuracy tests. I really only have a 1X optic on it, which is this Vortex. I think this is called a Spitfire 1X prismatic. I've almost universally gone away from red dots on rifles just because I have an astigmatism. And I do also like having an etched reticle on a prismatic, because that means if your batteries fail, you still have an optic. But on most of them, you can also have some form of illumination that you can just switch on and then actually still be able to see your optic in low light, or your reticle in low light. So my accuracy will be a little bit limited by that, but it should be fine. We'll see. The other thing too I really like on this is it has backup sights built into the rail. You can't even really see them from here, but you can see there's a slight dip in the rail system. That's where your backup sights are hidden. And it's nice because they're unobtrusive to where if you need to mount something over those spots, you still can. You can mount right over the top of them and not have any issue with clearing that. So that's pretty nice too. The front side also, by the way, has a tritium insert in it, like with their Galil Aces. The rear sight does not, but that's fine. I don't really see ever even using the backup sights on it. So it's a nice bullpup overall. I like it. It's, like I said, the only other one I'd even consider owning, because we're pretty well a military variant focused channel here. So that's just kind of where our interests lie, are guns that have some type of military pedigree. And this obviously meets that standard. And I really do think with the overall package, it's a nice compact package. It's so compact that they actually had to add an extended butt pad, because the overall length was too short without it, even with a 16-inch barrel, which is pretty cool. So it's just a very handy, if not heavy feeling rifle. So that's my gun of the day, the Tavor X95, this one in flat dark earth. Hope you liked the video. Please click like if you did. Be sure to subscribe to us if you haven't already, and check out the link to our Patreon page if you're interested in helping support us. And this is Jay, and I'll see you again soon next time.